Welcome to Running on Ice, the coolest community in freight. I'm your host, Mary O'Connell, bringing you the latest updates, warehouse news, and everything happening in the cold chain world. Not only is there the coolest show on freight, but there's also Running on Ice, the newsletter that could not be colder. You can subscribe to that on FreightWaves.com/running on ice. Today, we welcome Michael Niederhauser, Parsyl's VP of Strategic Partnerships. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm excited for today. This is something that we honestly haven't we haven't covered in a hot minute, and that's kind of, the goods behind the goods, the stuff that makes sure that if a reefer unit fails on an entire, trailer of strawberries, like, it's gonna be okay adjacent. Like, we're gonna lose some strawberries, but we're not gonna be crippled financially. Um, but before we get too far into that, let's get some background on you and how you got started at Parcel.
Sure. Thanks, Mary. Yeah. So, quite a journey, much like your strawberries you mentioned a moment ago. I actually started out as a programmer with Accenture. I was doing a supply chain systems, engineering that. And obviously, after that, I joined the Peace Corps. So, I went to Sub Saharan Africa and taught mathematics for 2 years. A little bit of an about face. But after that, came back to the States and focused my career around supply chain and then healthcare as well. Interestingly enough, healthcare in the early 2000s was adapting a lot of supply chain principles as well as manufacturing principles. So interesting things came together there. I then found my way into a startup and just kind of got a startup bug. I had one amazing experience with a startup where we were acquired by another consulting company called Huron out of Chicago. Amazing experience, right? Not life changing. I'm still here, but still great. I also had another not so great experience. And so, you learn from all of them, right? But definitely decided that startups were for me. And so, kind of after the not so good experience, I crossed paths with the current CEO, Ben Hubbard. Our kids, now teenagers, previously were in preschool together. So talked with him, just obviously doing the catch up. And he's like, hey, your background, this and that, we're startup phase doing some different stuff. Why don't you come in and meet the team? So did, and went extremely well, and here I am today. So, actually started out as a part of our monitoring side of the business, helping with customer retention and growth, and more recently have moved over into strategic partnerships, which really focuses on data partners, but also on our brokerage entities as partners. Insurance is a little bit different than your typical buying cycle. If you need insurance, Mary, as a supply chain company, you're going to go to a broker, and your broker is going to find you insurance. So when you realize that you don't buy insurance directly, you go through a broker. From our perspective, managing brokers and broker relationships really are the key to helping you and your company. So that's that in a nutshell. And today, I kind of sit in this interesting spot. At least I find it interesting. It's between our technical team, so the team that's really acquiring, analyzing data, building systems, and our underwriters that are actually the ones that are sitting down, evaluating the risk and putting prices on it. So very different worlds, and I'm kind of in the middle there, and I really do like it.
I kinda like that you sit in that almost like a translator role of, like, you sit there and you go, "Okay, yes, technical, keep doing your thing," but then the underwriters are like, "I don't particularly like, I care, but I don't care. I just need, like, the Reader's Digest version," you know?
You're so right, and understanding like the why. Why am I recording all of these individual routes now versus just making a rate? And there are reasons behind it, and you're right. That why is often missed, and I don't think that's unique to insurance, right? I think the why is probably the not so secret sauce to any business functioning effectively, right?
That's why, like, there's always, like, that one department at any company that you're like, "What do they" like, they do things, but then they like, also 90% of their job is just taking things from everyone else and being like, "Okay, this is why you guys should care about it," in, like, a very layman's term. Because for the most part, you're right, there's always those 2 departments that are like, "I don't give a crap what they do, like, just do what I need you to do," but then also, like, they all, like, work together, so it's a fun position to be in, the little
It is.
translator.
It is, and it's constantly challenging, flexing me. So, definitely not sure that I would have guessed I would be here today, but I sure am glad that I am.
You know, who would have thought? Who would have thought all those years ago? Um, but before we go all the way down into that insurance rabbit hole, let's take it back. Let's do that 3,000-foot view. Kind of give us some context of because you guys have had some pretty big announcements
We
lately.
have.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
to properly celebrate, let's get some background. What is Parcel? I know you guys might have been on the show years ago. It was
Yeah.
before I took over.
Okay.
So, for all of us who have not been listening from the beginning,
Yeah.
give us some context on Parcel and kind of a quick cargo insurance 101, because it's more important than you think it is.
It is. It is. Thank you. Yeah. Super quick, high level. Parcel, we are a data powered cargo insurance for complex supply chain companies. So it's all about ensuring complex supply chains, right? Um, we acquire and use data from many, many different sources so that we can better understand price and mitigate risk. And ultimately, what that means is our insureds end up saving money and we can help them actually improve coverage if they have the right scenarios in place. So building on that, Mary, let's take your strawberry example. Mary's berries. You've got to ship your berries, all around the world, and you usually are on risk for your berries from farm until customer, right? Things happen, and through that process, it could be catastrophic events. Obviously, we've heard a lot about wildfires recently, floods that are associated with hurricanes. When that stuff happens, it's really hard to plan for that, almost impossible. And that's really when I think insurance is its best, is covering those big catastrophic events that no one else could really do anything about. So we're there for that, right? Um, the scenario where we actually have really started to dig into is where the risk is not catastrophic, right? It could be a human error, it could have been a malfunction of a piece of equipment. Lots of different scenarios like that. And so what we're really focused on is helping in those scenarios use data so that if there is a potential problem, Mary, with your berries, then we can help you better understand that risk at a global scale, meaning across your operations, not necessarily around the world, unless you're sending your berries around the world. We can help there too. But it's basically a mutual kind of relationship, long term relationship where we use data and we're trying to help our insureds better understand their own risk so they can mitigate that. Because guess what? That's a benefit to you because if you can sell your goods, you actually get the profit on top of it, not to mention maintain your customer relationships. If you reduce your losses, that also helps us as your insurer. We don't want you to have losses, and you don't either, right? So that's kind of the mutual relationship that we're trying to really grow and harvest, if you will. So we're here if you need it, and if you don't, then we're still here. But yeah, so that's insurance in a nutshell. And again, the really interesting part is the brokerages in all of this, because you typically will need all sorts of different types of insurance, Mary, not just for your shipments, not just for goods in stock, for all your employees, workers, all these things. So a broker helps to consolidate that and add value in that chain because there are many different types of insurance. So for Parcel, it is important to note that we are cargo insurance. So one piece of a very big insurance pie. And really that involves stuff going over land, sea, air, and goods in stock as well.
Mm. I think that's kind of like a unique position to be in because like you said, because you take that data approach to it, it's more than just like, oh, someone forgot to turn a reefer on. Okay. Like you can see how often it's happening with a specific carrier. And then if your customers are using this carrier a lot, then you say, hey, maybe pick a different carrier or do something else or come up with something else because we're seeing things fail at this rate that is causing you to lose more because of these certain human conditions. But then also, maybe you could take a step further and say, if I'm shipping pharmaceuticals and I have manufacturing in the South and then in the North, maybe I switch a little bit more manufacturing to the South in the wintertime. So that way I
Right.
don't have to deal with blizzards and stuff getting stuck in production or not being able to ship out or sitting there forever because it's stuck on a trailer that's under like feet of snow
You're
because
exactly right.
the northern half of the country uh does love a lot of snow.
Oh,
They
yeah.
do. They love a lot of snow in the
It's
wintertime.
happening.
And then also, Same with that southern option. If you have something, around the coast near Florida, Alabama, something like that, then you say, maybe during hurricane season, we shift that up to the north. So that way our facility can obviously still run. But when we have some of those things that are huge disruptors and can devastate an area, you kind of have that flexibility to still keep your product moving, but also, like you said, mitigate those losses. So that way you're not left there going, well, I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to hope for the best. Whereas you guys have that data that says, well, statistically, this is what's going to happen.
That's exactly right. Got it.
So, on to the big exciting news that you guys have.
Yes.
You guys recently got that in the terms of the youths, I think. Don't quote
Yes,
me
yes,
here.
yes.
You got that bag. You guys secured a huge raise in your
We did.
Series C funding.
That's right.
So, what's the goal? What's the plan for it? What are you guys planning to do other than just take over the world and make everyone a Parcel customer?
That's right. No, I think really there's three main areas that we're focusing on. First and foremost is people. While we are really, really scaling in a different way than traditional insurance organizations, we absolutely have to have people in the right places, talented underwriters that truly understand the risk and be able to write that and to serve our customers. So that's the very first thing is an investment in people here in North America as well as in London as well, which is our main office in London and here in the States too. So people, number one. Number two is technology and data. This is both a combination of building some in-house tools as well as purchasing some in-house tools. I think one of the key areas that we're really going to focus on actually touches on the people piece, which is making sure that our underwriters are maximizing their time. A statistic I saw recently was most underwriters, over 85%, 86%, spend 2 hours a day on manual data entry, right? Just setting up a risk, right? Think about that. And we've got incredibly smart underwriters that understand risk in ways that you and I just don't even think about it. And here they are doing data entry. So that is a very clear area where we're investing. We already made some significant gains, but there's a lot more to go here, as well as obtaining really non-conventional insurance data. So, buying information from logistics companies, partnering with other monitoring agencies to get us more information because the more information we have, the better view that we have of risk, right? Um, the third area is really investing in our mission. And so our mission is pretty interesting. We really do believe that insurance can actually change the world. I know it's a little bit of a lot there, but thinking about this, there used to be a time when warehouses throughout the states were practically uninsurable, right? You had all these consolidated risks, fire happens, all these goods are lost. Well, the insurance industry basically said, we'll insure you, but you need to install sprinklers, right? And so across the board now, you have this adoption of sprinklers, not just for commercial, but for residential, et cetera, that has really improved the lives of many and reduced harm and reduced loss. So there is this kind of interesting impact, if you will, that insurance can have. So we're really looking to invest in those sorts of areas that can change the world for the better, and honestly, that could be beyond perishables, which is our core area, into other vertically integrated supply chains as well. So hopefully, those three areas gives you some idea of what we're investing in. But honestly, it's an investment, and we're looking to return value to the good old stakeholders, right? I mean, everyone loves that statement.
I absolutely love it because honestly, I saw a statistic. I'm gonna completely butcher it. I should have looked it up recently, but it was something like in your entire like if I'm a shipper and I'm shipping berries, I can expect to lose 30% of my product. And again, I might have that statistic wrong, so do not quote me. But it's like you can just automatically expect to lose 30% of your shipment just due to like improper supply chain or just generic loss. And I remember being so angry when I saw that because I was like, why are you in why knowing that this is gonna happen? Is this something that you're like, yeah, that's fine. We can take a 30% loss on just off the top. And then there's, the losses that happen through whatever else happens. Um, whether you have to move a shipment, nothing happens to the berries, but if you have to move it, at a thing that at like a price point that's lower or too low, it's not great. And so I love that because if you can come in and say, "Hey, by doing these tiny little things, doing these changes, we can kind of mitigate some of this loss and drop that 30% down." Also, I'm pretty sure that the fire departments all across the world are thanking insurance companies for sprinklers. Just saying.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Like, they're like, "Oh, no, you have a sprinkler. Oh, the worst." So when it comes to kind of the future of the cargo space, if you will, because that's something that I think at its core is something that you guys are really setting yourself up for with these investments within your company. You guys are really saying we're gonna more or less future proof ourselves. Really just make sure that we're setting everyone up to grow and be successful. What are some of those trends that you see happening, or what do you really kind of see the cargo space turning into, or the cargo insurance space turning into here in a couple years, or maybe in, like, the Jetsons' future?
Yeah, so I mean, cargo insurance is definitely evolving and going fast, right? Um, Supply chains we've seen are just ever after becoming more complex and interdependent. And so what that really means is cargo offerings also has to be able to adapt to these interconnected supply chains and be able to honestly be customizable based on very unique stages of companies and where they are in that important supply chain. So, we're investing heavily in AI and data-driven policies, right? Um, Artificial intelligence can and should be used in many ways. We can talk about that perhaps in a different question. But really, here, we're using data to create custom policies. So, the berries example that we've been talking about, we actually do a lot of work with countries in Latin America. And it used to be essentially that a berry was a berry, right? And we could draw a line. Even citrus is tossed in there, avocado. We have enough data now that actually prices cherries very different than oranges, right? So again, you had this common line. Certain commodities are much higher risk, others are much lower risk. And so to understand that helps us, but it also helps our insured. They may have been overpaying or et cetera. So using data to customize policies. You talked a little bit about hurricane season. Well, in insurance, there's a concept of your max value at a given location. And traditionally, you'll get that max value, and it is assumed that you're always going to have that max value in that warehouse just outside of Miami, right? Including hurricane season. Well, guess what? If we have an idea of what your seasonality is, we can actually help to understand, well, no, you have very low stock in Miami during hurricane season. We're not going to ding you for that, right? We're not going to charge you the max value. So it's using the information we have with a little bit more steps than maybe has traditionally been done to better price risk. So I think using data for those elements is really important. Having a variety of products to offer to insured. So, not just having goods in stock or goods in transit, but actually offering stock throughput policies that cover everything end to end. Warehouse liability, logistics liability, really having a variety of offerings in the cargo space is super important and super helpful as you're going out to look for these sorts of insurance. Because if they're related and information can be shared between, that means that you're going to get better service in the event of a claim, right?
I think that's something that is happening just kind of in the insurance industry in general, not necessarily like limited to just cargo insurance, but also for like your carrier insurance and other stuff like that. I'm starting to see a lot more of well, if you give us more information, we can give you a better policy, which is completely fair because I used to be a pricing analyst and I had the exact same problem when I would say, "Hey, can you move this freight for me?" And people would say, "We need a picture. We need to know what it looks like. We need to know what we're moving. We need to know how it's wrapped on a pallet. We need to know what we're working with." And then if the shipper didn't give it or the sales guy was like, "We don't need to ask the shipper for that." I'm like, "Well, then you're going to get bad pricing." And so it really does help because the more you know and the more you're kind of, because ultimately insurance is kind of mitigating the unknown. And so if your list of unknowns is a mile long, well, your price is going to be a lot higher. But if you can just knock like four things off the list of the unknown, well, maybe for everything you knock down, and I think that insurers are now becoming, whether it's a broker, like you said, or the actual people who underwrite the policy, I think that they are kind of also on board with it. Well, more data is power. Like, we know kind of how to manage this now
Yeah.
instead of just like, here's my entire supply chain. How much is
Yeah.
it going to be?
Yeah. Well, and it is interesting as well when you take outside influences into consideration as well, like climate change, flood and wind, geopolitical tension is certainly a thing around the world. Like we could, I'm sure, talk for years on that. Regulation, like inflation, more advanced theft. Like we recently heard of this scenario in Brazil where a makeshift warehouse was set up. Goods were delivered. Turns out it was a heist, right? And a claim there. It's just increasing complexity. We actually did a little bit of a piece toward the end of last year. So if you're interested in reading into some of these a little bit more, you can search for Parsyl predictions for 2025. We go into a couple of these things and talk through some of these specifics. So little shameless plug there to check that out.
But it's so true though, because we've talked to somebody else in insurance and they said, yeah, like there's a lot of times where a driver won't know that they are taking stolen goods and they will drop it off at a warehouse that looks like it's any other warehouse and it's a very sophisticated operation. And to that, I would like to make yet another appeal to the criminals who are definitely not listening to this, but maybe they are. Maybe like catch it on like a little drive by.
Yeah.
Um, just go legit,
Yeah.
please. Go
Yeah.
legit because if you were running such sophisticated operations like on illegal goods or like stolen goods, just go legit and save us all the time because you're gonna make a killing.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a waste of resource for sure.
You know, you could have been a supply chain giant, but instead you're just gonna be an underworld theft guy, where you could go legit and it would be great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
such a sad day.
Or go to insurance. No, wait, don't do that. Not if you're a thief. Sorry.
Wait, so in theory, if
Yeah.
you were like a criminal
Mhm.
stealing like if I stole the load of berries, I couldn't like do I have insurance if I'm a criminal running a warehouse?
We don't offer that. Like that's like we're definitely shying away from that. But
Well, like, I was sitting there and I'm like, "Would a criminal go get insurance for his
yeah,
stolen goods?" I feel like no.
I mean, it's an interesting question, and I'm sure there's someone somewhere has tried to do that. But yeah, definitely not advised from my seat right now.
Anyway, and that's about criminals trying to insure. Um, all right, so we have a very little bit amount of time. So I have two questions, and one is going to be the most important. But before that, what's kind of like, I know you said you're making all these investments in people and technology and different things to grow. What's kind of on the horizon for you guys in the next year? Do we get another a year prediction of Parcels trends of maybe 2026? What do we
Yeah, yeah, I know. I think definitely we'll come out with some more information there. I think the biggest thing is growth, right? We'll look back at this year and be able to say this was the year 2025 when we actually started turning a profit. And in a startup world, that's a pretty huge deal. So major milestone, massive opportunity for us to grow in North America. Believe it or not, it's much more complicated. I shouldn't say that. It's a much more distributed insurance market than the traditional Lloyd's of London insurance market, where that really has everyone coming to one place, London, to purchase insurance. Here in the States, obviously, we're a lot more spread out, lots more specialty. So that's going to be a really important thing and does feed back into the people piece. I think that you'll also see Parcel really making an impact in more emerging markets where there are probably barriers today to comfortably insuring, but with a little bit more information, a little bit more rigor, will be far more insurable. So Brazil is an area that's a very complex insurance market to get into. Obviously, an incredible amount of opportunity. You've also got to balance that with, I think, some very real problems around the ethically sourced goods. I mean, any wood or anything that comes from Brazil, you have to be concerned about deforestation. And the EU has regulations in place around enforcing that, which ultimately, if your goods are stopped going into the EU, could be from Brazil. You might then have delays and might, in fact, need some coverage for that. So, understanding, some of the regulations, I think, is really important. But emerging markets are huge. Additional phases of technology investment, new products, and then the growth of our data partner program, which I currently lead. Probably the biggest things that you'll see from us internally over the next 12, 24 plus months.
I can't wait. So I was not entirely wrong when I said Parsyl's just gonna come take over the world.
I mean,
One
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 supply chain at a time.
yeah, one step at a time, one country at a time. Um, so that being said, Michael, there's a question that everybody that comes on the show does have to answer.
Yes.
It could be the hardest question that you're
Yes.
asked all day.
Yes. Hold on,
Um,
there we go.
is cereal considered a soup?
You know, um, wow, I did not expect that. So here you go. The obvious first answer is no. However, I challenge you. My favorite soup happens to be gazpacho, cold
Okay.
tomato soup, right? Now, tomatoes,
Yeah,
actually botanically a fruit, if I'm not mistaken.
correct,
So it's
correct.
a cold fruit soup. Therefore, I mean, cereal, cold, oftentimes has fruit in it.
I love a fruity pebble.
I mean, right? So good, so healthy. Um, so this actually might be an interesting one to ask Chat GPT or your favorite other AI bot. And I bet with some prompting, you could actually train it to get to that answer. And that's one of kind of the unique things about artificial intelligence that a lot of people don't even understand is that it's learning. So there you go. I mean, I think the short answer is no or yes. It is yes. It
I
must be
guess.
because of gazpacho.
I guess. I am team no because they're in 2 separate aisles in the grocery store, but I'm also a
Okay.
monster that doesn't
Yeah.
eat milk with my cereal. So
Okay, so
I
I
just
mean,
eat
yeah, well,
cereal
that's
dry.
clearly not a soup without any liquid. I think we could
Correct,
agree that soups do require some sort of liquid.
correct. I also because I don't like how soggy cereal gets when you put milk in it. It's
Yeah.
just not it's a texture thing, you know?
Yeah, well, if are
Mhm.
you just leaving it out there for, like, an hour or something, or
No, it's just like I like a crunch. I'm a crunch person. I like the crunchier the better. Like, that is my chief complaint with most pizza is that it's not crispy enough on the bottom.
Okay,
So,
alright. I mean, you
anyway,
learn a lot through these discussions.
just forever learning. That being said, if someone wants to continue the learning, or if they have
Yeah.
a really good gazpacho recipe, or if they have
Yes.
questions about how the heck do I get insurance on this weird thing I don't know how to do, or just help, please,
Yeah.
where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, so the best way would be to go to our website, Parsyl.com. Lots of resources there. Contact us. You can also just search up Michael Niederhauser, I before E, and reach out to me on LinkedIn, et cetera. Happy to help, however, connect you with the right person that really can help. So,
Thank you so much for joining us today.
yeah, it's been a pleasure, Mary. Thank you.
You can catch other episodes of Running on Ice here on FreightWaves TV, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Need more Running on Ice news? No sweat. Subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. See you on the internet.